Good evening and welcome to Toastmasters Bay to Bay, where we feature speakers from San Francisco all the way down to Monterey and beyond. Tonight we have our usual format. We have 2 speakers for you and 2 evaluators. So without further delay, let me introduce our first speaker, who is Dan Moirao of Pro Toasties. He's going to give his speech, 3 myths about public speaking. That's 3 myths about public speaking. Help me welcome Dan Moirao.
Thank you, Stan. Have you ever been lazy? You know, sometimes in our thinking, we start to believe something like being lazy is not a good thing, and we create this myth. But think about it for just a moment. What does being lazy do for you? It often re-energizes us. It often will then clear our thinking and allow us to become creative. What's interesting is in public speaking, we have certain things we come to believe. They become our myths, and yet there are some realities. We're going to talk about 3 myths in this time we have together. The first myth is you need to memorize your speech. The reality is we really should internalize our speech. Not only should we internalize our speech, but we should help our audience internalize our speech. We want to create star moments, something they will always remember. If in our speeches we can create star moments, our speech will carry on beyond us. It will hit the social media, and that's what we want to do. So our first myth is we are to memorize our speech. The reality is we should internalize our speech. Myth number 2. The fact is that we sometimes get into a monologue with our audience. The reality is we want to have a dialogue with our speech, again, so that our audience can internalize what we've said, have those star moments. We want to address the thought, we want to address the heart. And there's 3 ways we can help our audience internalize our speech. First way is we can do a soundbite, a repeatable soundbite that in fact energizes the heart and keeps it in the memory. We might use evocative visuals. You've heard it said that a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, I'd like to add to that oftentimes a picture is worth 1,000 emotions. The third way that we can help our audience internalize our speech is by providing them with some startling statistics. Something that kind of stops the audience in their track so that they have that Scooby-Doo moment. Huh? So there's 3 ways we can help our audience internalize our presentation. First, as I said, is a repeatable moment, a repeatable soundbite. That repeatable soundbite might be something as simple as a quote they've heard many times before. Something like, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you." You could also repeat a sound at the beginning of a series of statements. We might say something like, "Of the people, a government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from this earth." A quote from Abraham Lincoln and the Gettysburg Address. We might have something in the middle of our speech that is repeatable and in a series. We are often troubled, but we are not perplexed. We are often persecuted, but we are not forsaken. We are cast down, but we are not destroyed. A simple passage from Paul and the Corinthians, and notice how it got repeated. We might do something towards the end of a series of statements. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was a time of wisdom. It was a time of foolishness. Charles Dickens and A Tale of Two Cities. But notice how they evoked a memory. Any one of those, when we had a series, a repeatable series at the beginning, the middle, and then at the end. What we want to do is engage the memory. We want to address the thought, and we want to address the heart. So we have two myths and realities right now. First, you may remember, is that we need to memorize our speech, or do we need to internalize our speech? We need to create those star moments. The second is, in fact, do we have a monologue with our audience, or do we have a dialogue with our audience? Engage them in the process. The third is that we often believe, the myth is, our speeches should be filled with facts and figures. The reality is, we should value brevity. Do you know that Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address was 278 words and delivered just over 2 minutes in length? One of the shortest speeches in history, yet known as one of the greatest. Value brevity. Do we memorize our speech, or do we internalize our speech? Do we have a monologue or a dialogue? Do we fill our speech with facts and figures, or do we value brevity? With brevity, I now quit.
Thank you very much for that speech, Dan. Wow, there was a lot of great advice offered there. You're obviously an experienced speaker. How long did it take you to realize all these things? Did you develop these, or did you?
It's from my own practice, what happened to me in front of a group, and a lot of training that I went through and learned as I went through training and speaking.
Well, your first point is one of my favorites, is not to memorize a speech. I truly feel that to speak from the heart, you really have to internalize. You have to actually believe what you're saying.
Yes. Yeah, when you engage the heart, you really engage the mind, and then your presentation sticks with the audience.
Great, great. Dan, what club are you with?
Pro Toasties that meets in San Mateo.
Now, I happen to know that's an advanced club, right?
It is an advanced club.
And you must get something out of hearing other advanced speakers. I'm sure other people got a lot out of hearing you speak.
Oh, there's a great deal of value in listening to any speaker. It's almost now I can't listen to a speaker without thinking about their technique and how they're presenting the words they use.
Yeah, I find the same thing. If you listen to something critically and you say, well, that doesn't quite work for me, why is that, right? And that's why evaluation is a really important part of this entire program.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Dan.
Thank you, Stan.
And in that spirit, we do have an evaluation for Dan. Here to evaluate Dan's speech is Sharon Corgile. Sharon is a distinguished Toastmaster, member of Milpitas Toastmasters and Next Step Toastmasters, another advanced club. She is the current Director of Youth Leadership for District 4. Please help me welcome Sharon Corgile.
Daniel, thank you so much for a lovely speech, The 3 Myths of Public Speaking. The title caught my attention right away because you're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, public speaking. And then you're going to, I guess, explode the myths of public speaking. So that was also a great attention grabber. Now you gave us 3 points because organization was one of the focuses of your project with this speech. And you talked about memorize versus internalize, monologue versus dialogue, and then overdosing on statistics. And you spent a little time with each point, and then you came back again later in the speech and spent more time. Now those things I thought were really, really, really well done. The idea of those 3 categories. Fit very well into your speech. One suggestion I would offer on that is that organization, a lot of it is about balance, and you tend to spend probably the majority of your time on the internalization, and then not quite so much time, particularly on the memorize versus internalize, and then the startling statistics. So I would like to have heard a little bit more about that, and then also keep it in the compartment where you had it, because you gave us a 3, and then you talked about it a little bit, and then you jumped back to 2, and so if you could just get it really tightly packaged, 1, 2, and 3, it would help us keep it straight in our mind. One of the things I loved about your speech is you had wonderful quotes and examples and stories. The quote, the Abraham Lincoln, one of my favorites, those were beautiful and they illustrated your point, I thought, perfectly. So definitely a strong point there. The voice variety that you had, very strong voice, very confident, avoiding nervousness and notes was another thing that was a project for this speech. And you kept all those in your brain, but you didn't sound like a robot repeating them. You repeated them with life and vivacity, so it was really very well done. Very well done. You also came back to your points in your conclusion to remind us once again that these are 3 myths and that we want to avoid them. We want to stay on the good side, internalize the dialogue. We're talking to the audience, and then to avoid the overdose of statistics. So keeping those in mind, I think you've given us a lot of ammunition for all of our future speeches. And I really want to thank you very much for doing such a lovely job of exploding the myths of public speaking. Thank you. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Sharon. Well, we like to present Toastmaster proceedings in the studio, but we also like to take you outside of the studio to an actual Toastmasters club. So this month, our featured club is Promasters, who is a breakfast club who meets out in Foster City. Let's drop in on them for a visit.
My club is a morning meeting club. We meet once a week, every week. We start at 7:30, we end at 8:30. We meet at a cafe called Mimi's. We meet in the back room. They're very, very gracious to let us have the back room. And we also have a dedicated wait person. Nancy has been our wait person since the inception of the club. She's wonderful, she knows us all. She'll order your meal as soon as she sees you walk in. We actually have made her an honorary member, so we pay for her membership for Nancy to be a club member.
If your speech is engaging enough, they put down their fork and they listen. We definitely have a very friendly club. We all get along, we enjoy each other's company, which is part of the charm of this club. And it's not just about the speaking, it's about the leadership and getting to know people, networking for people who in this tough economic time may not have employment. Getting involved in Toastmasters gives you connections with people that do all sorts of things.
We're very high energy, we're very supportive, we're very fun, and we're very humorous. I, for one, look forward to Thursday mornings, whether I have a role or not, because it's just so much fun. We all care about each other in a way. It's kind of like coming to a party or a family reunion. It's really fun.
Our club is very encouraging, and they encourage the new members to definitely take on the speeches quickly. It generates interest and enthusiasm. And each additional speech that you give bring on additional dimensions. So by the time you finish 10, I believe, they're trying to make you a very well-rounded speaker, but also various dimensions of public speech, such as how do you evaluate a speaker? How do you listen? How do you do impromptu speech? At the same time, you also build network and connect with like-minded people who are interested in improving themselves and make each of us a better person.
I'll be a Toastmaster for life. And why? I believe that we can always improve our skills. There are several areas in my public speaking that I still think I can improve.
We sometimes are spilling out of our facility because we have so many people. People will show up, they'll come visit, and they'll join.
It's fantastic. I highly recommend it to anyone.
I love Toastmasters. I use the skill set every day in my public life as well as in my private life, and I encourage anybody who has an interest in public speaking or fear of public speaking, come check out a club, join Toastmasters.
Welcome back. Hope you enjoyed that that visit with Promasters. You'll find that Toastmasters clubs each have their own personality. So every Toastmasters club invites visitors, so please visit one soon. We have another speaker and another evaluator for you in the second half of the show. Here to present his speech, Corned, is Denet Lewis. Please help me welcome Denet Lewis.
Obesity is a growing problem in America, no pun intended. Did you ever stop and wonder, why are we eating too much? Where are those 200 extra calories per day coming from? And why is junk food so cheap? Why is the worst food for you the cheapest? Well, to understand this, we've got to go back to the farm. And we've got to go back in the 70s. President Nixon was in office. And what happened then? Well, he signed an agreement with the Soviet Union with the grain, it was a grain agreement. And shortly after that, there was a host of bad things happen. There was a series of bad weather that hit the Midwest of this country. And it just so happened that grain prices and commodities started going up. Americans got frustrated. They saw their meat price go up, their food prices, and they started protesting. President Nixon responded. He told the then Secretary of Agriculture, Earl Butz, do whatever you can to stop this. Well, Earl, he came out and changed the farm subsidy program, and they decided they'd pay farmers to grow crops. And the one that really changed the world was corn. Farmers are paid to grow corn. No matter how much corn is out there, they're guaranteed a price. So suddenly, the small farms started disappearing and disappearing, and it became industrialized. Bigger farms grew, bigger and bigger. It went from where a farmer would produce 20 to 40 bushels per acre up to routinely now 200 bushels per acre. Genetically modified corn, hybrid corn, corn that they can just go and spray Roundup ready. They can spray Roundup and herbicides right on top of the plant and it doesn't hurt it. Chemical fertilizers that are injected into the soil, and this one crop just grows and grows, and it's dirt cheap. So what happens to us? Well, lo and behold, a bunch of products start coming out. Here's one of them, corn flakes. Some other inventors come up with Doritos. How about Fritos? It's all made of corn. How about some Cheetos? Another corn product. Eating corn on the cob's not bad for you, but eating all these refined and processed foods, corn muffins, corn syrup, that's really nasty stuff. This isn't even food. You shouldn't be eating corn syrup. And corn syrup has worked its way in everything. The price got cheap, and what happened? Suddenly an 8-ounce Coke became, what, a 40-ounce Coke. Supersize me, supersize Americans, and look at what happened to us. We went crazy with cheap food, cheap calories, and it's all crap, and it's all terrible for all of us. It spikes our insulin level up. It causes a host of problems, and you wonder why we've got diabetes out there. You wonder why Americans are fat. Well, we're eating too much. We're eating too much processed crap, and it's really bad for us. Look, these marketers are so slick. Things that you think are fat-free and healthy for us. Strawberry Newtons. What do you think the first ingredient in here is? High fructose corn syrup. Terrible stuff for us. And it didn't stop there. It comes through candies, licorice. And it keeps going, and it keeps going. Oh, tostados. What do you think they're made out of? How about some corn dogs? What do you think those are made out of? It just doesn't stop. How about some nice fruit roll-ups? What do you think the main ingredient in here is? I'll let you guess. Yep, it's corn. We're made of corn. Now, that's only half the story, though. You know what? Corn's dirt cheap. So we're eating it. It's in our food. But you know what? It's not only us eating it. These cows are eating it. Cows aren't made to sit around and eat corn all day. They're made to eat grass and a variety of plants. And it gets them sick, so the cows get antibiotics. And it turns out corn's really good at fattening up cows. Hint, that's not the only thing it's good at fattening up. So we're eating corn-fed beef, corn-fed chicken. Shoot, the chicken, grain-fed, vegetarian chickens, they eat corn. Now, it breaks my heart that they're giving fish, a wonderful food with a great fatty acid profile. They're giving them corn, and it's crap. So what happens? Corn oil, it's terrible stuff because it's got way too much omega-6 and not enough omega-3s. That's nasty. What happens, it increases inflammation in us. It gets our fats out of whack. And when you cook with it at high temperature, sure, you get trans fats. How would you like some chicken nuggets? They're corn-fed chicken, which is rolled in corn, held together with corn glue, fried in corn oil. Look at it. It's coming at us. We're being invaded by corn. Look for a healthy product. How about some light yogurt, which is sweetened with corn, made from a cow which was fed corn, and given milk, which is made from the milk from a dairy cow that was fed corn. All the fatty acids are wrong. There's over 100,000 edible plants. 80% of our calories are coming from 4 of those plants. Our agriculture is just really screwed up, and here we are subsidizing it with $15.4 billion per year. Us, the taxpayer, we're paying for all these crappy calories. Meanwhile, we give organics and vegetables and fruits $825 million. Did you hear that? 15.4 billion versus 825 million. We're subsidizing crap, and it's attacking our health, and we're not getting mad about it. We should be mad. Why are our tax dollars going for crap and bad food? That's why it's cheap. That's why so many of us are getting fat and sick, and it's hurting our health, and life expectancy is going down, and a host of other problems. What can you do about it? Eat locally. Vote, get ticked off, write letters to your politicians, get political. Avoid corn syrup. Read labels. When you see corn syrup, it's bad. Don't buy it. Look out for processed food. Go with the less processed food you can find. Go to farmers markets. Educate yourself. Michael Pollan writes some great books, and there are a host of other authors out there putting out great information. Take some time to educate yourself and go back and get the best food that you can find and get mad about our tax money being spent on this crap. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thanks very much, Denet. So you're obviously very impassioned about this topic.
You think so?
That's
Very
a good
much.
sign because you can really make a great speech here.
Well,
thank you very much for your speech. Thanks. And to evaluate Denet's speech, we have Melisa Frick. So please help me welcome Melisa Frick to give us her impressions of Denet's speech.
Fellow Toastmasters, and Denet, that was a very passionate speech. When I heard the word corn, I couldn't tell where you were going to go with that speech. But thank you for sharing. I loved that you had a lot of vocal variety. I loved to see your passion as you're presenting. Great energy. I would have liked to have seen maybe alternatives to all the bad. As someone who grew up in the South, I know some of the benefits of corn. And I would love to have heard, if I couldn't eat the corn syrup and so forth, what could I eat to eat better? Just to balance it out a little bit more. It was fabulous. I love the fact that you talked about the history. I did not know the history. Thank you for sharing that and walking us through. The statistics that you showed or that you spoke to was fabulous. Lots of tax dollars going to fattening food. And I think the other comment I would say is on, there was a couple times where you were reading your speech. So just work on not looking at the notes. You know your speech, you can tell that, and you're passionate enough. And I guess my question for you, is corn good for anything? It was a wonderful speech. Thank you very much for sharing. Toastmaster?
Thank you very much, Melissa. Well, so to summarize, you've seen 2 really good speeches and 2 great evaluations, and also you've seen an external club here at Toastmasters Beta Bay. You know, one of the reasons I like to come to Toastmasters meetings is because I learn something every meeting that I'm at, whether it's about speaking technique or about things in general. I learned some things. You know, I knew about the grain deals, and I knew about corn and how it's invaded our diets, but I've never connected all the dots. So thank you very much, Denet, for doing this. And of course, thank you to our evaluators. Like I've said, the real value to a Toastmasters club is that you get evaluations. It's not just that you get a chance to speak. If you want to get a chance to speak, put an orange crate in the middle of the park, climb on top of it, and start ranting. That's your chance to speak, but people will not give you feedback about how to improve your rants. We do that here. To find out more about District 4 Toastmasters, visit d4tm.org. I thank you very much for dropping in on this episode of Toastmasters Beta Bay. I hope to see you back here again. Thank you.